Welcome everybody tonight to November 22nd, 2022 Committee of the Whole meeting. You have an agenda in front of you. Are there any additions to the agenda?
I just have under correspondence, I just got this today, so it's not just for me, it's for, I'm sorry, I didn't put my mic on. I just got this. It's a thank you, not just for council, so I'll.
So 8E we'll put under correspondence.
Correspondence.
Is there anything else? Hold on, I have something else. If nobody else has anything else, okay. I have, for in camera, I want to add in something for the Mariner Center. How do we, what's the correct terminology? The negotiations? Okay, for
We
Mariner.
have one.
There is
All
one
right,
already.
there is
Excuse me,
one
Madam. We do
already.
have one from negotiation, would be appropriate for transparency to show that there are two topics, not one.
Yes,
So it's already there, but we just would add minors.
and we're going to add Mariner Center. Anything else anybody wants to add? Okay, seeing. Any questions on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Any conflict of interest to declare? Anybody has a conflict of interest to declare on anything on the agenda? I don't see any, but again, if you have something along the way, just bring it up and we can deal with it at that time. Next, number 3, we have a presentation. Western Ren, we have Rob Stevenson. Welcome.
Thank you. Is that on? There we
There you
go.
go.
Will I go ahead now?
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Council, for having me here. My name's Rob Stevenson from the Western Ren. And do all of you know what the Western Ren does? Some of the activities that we have? We have things like we have the local immigration partnership, where we're helping our immigrants get settled in the area. We were instrumental in the rural internet project over the last few years, and that just ended about a year ago. We have a new innovation strategist that we brought on board to work with the MIT REAP in helping our companies with innovation and being up to date with technology. And we have the Connector program where we have people looking for work and employers looking for employees being connected. And we also have a project underway in green energy. And I myself, I'm the Business Now lead. I help guide businesses towards some of the programs that are out there to support them. And I'm also our continuous improvement program lead, where we're pairing up manufacturing companies with lean manufacturing consultants for a trial run on lean manufacturing consulting and process improvement. And we've done 30 of those projects with 30 different companies over the last 2 fiscal years in the region, 1 to 2 week duration projects. And I'm here tonight to talk about another project that I'm heading, the Succession Planning Project, or Business Transitioning Project. In this project, we're helping business owners who are thinking of or want to sell their businesses to get ready to sell or pass down their businesses. Our small businesses are important for our region. They provide more jobs in our region than any other sector. They're the largest source of wealth creation, and they're often the largest source of consumer spending within our communities. They provide services and products for our community, and they enhance our community's quality of life with their services and with their jobs as well. They help attract and retain residents in the area, and they are, why is keeping businesses here important to our economy? Because these businesses buy from other businesses within the community. They create a web of interdependent businesses. And many of our businesses are here to work with other local companies to serve the people of our community and for growth in our region. Growth begets growth. A network of positive economic activity is generated from this web of businesses. And the entire community benefits. Businesses with their interdependence of buying and selling to other local businesses, as businesses move in and out of a region, the economic activity grows and contracts with them. That's the main reason that we're interested in keeping our businesses here, even after a business is sold by a person who's looking to retire. The loss of a few businesses can cause the loss of more businesses in a sort of a spiral effect. A good example of this might have been the mink industry. When you lose the mink farmers, you lose a lot of the supporting businesses around it as well. And so it has a much bigger effect on the economy than just losing the farmers by themselves. So what we're doing at the Western Rin is we have this business transition and succession planning program to help to reduce the loss of businesses from our region. This interdependent network of businesses within our economy is very important. An example of this is our seafood harvesters. Seafood harvesting supports many other businesses in our economy. It supports seafood processors, boat shops, packaging manufacturers, equipment manufacturing and repair, metal and welding shops, refrigeration companies, trucking companies, rope and net manufacturers, trap manufacturers, bait companies, and retailers and services up and down the main street and through the community. So it just illustrates the web of businesses and how interdependent they are, and why we're interested in keeping businesses that are going from either stopping or from moving to Halifax or moving out of the region. In our region, there are certain risk factors that we look at with regard to losing businesses or keeping businesses. Some of the risk factors here in our community would be population stagnation, no growth in the population, declining job creation numbers, low declining household income, lack of industry diversity, and a large number of businesses being owned by people who are 55 and over. And also old businesses that were founded over 20 years ago or so. These are just factors that you would say would indicate a higher risk of losing businesses in a community. So, and also a large number of owners with no transition plan. So our business owners then in Canada, across the nation, there are 1.2 million small and medium enterprise employers. They employ 10.8 million workers, and the businesses are valued at a total of $1.5 trillion. 60% of the businesses are baby boomer owned, and the boomers own a much higher proportion of the value of the 1.5 trillion than just the 60%, because their businesses are older and they're relatively worth more. So they hold the lion's share of the worth of our small businesses. 72% of the business owners plan to exit their business by 2028. 72%. And COVID seems to have augmented this sentiment. And this is, the source of this is the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses, and that was pre-COVID in 2018 numbers. Now, our region has similar demographics and trends. If you think about business owners in our area, many of them are owned by baby boomers, people in their maybe late 50s and 60s. Many business owners are ready to retire in our area. So this is why we have a focus on this particular topic, because we want to help people retire and we want to keep these businesses going in our area as much as we can. So, so how can we help at the Western Ren? We're trying to keep the economic activity here by providing business transition planning projects for our business owners to help them develop a succession plan and help them sell their business and keep that business going. These plans help the business owner plan the sale and the transition of the business. Why are successful business transitions important for business owners? Well, for the owners, it's important to help maximize the value of the business when they sell it. 75 to 95% of an owner's personal net worth is tied up in their business. That's their retirement fund, generally speaking. Our region's business owners are often key participants in our community, and I'm sure we can all think of a number of business owners who take part in the community and support it. We want to see them do well when they sell their business, you know. For employees, good transition plans help keep the business strong through the transition. They keep it going, they keep the employees working, and they create a positive work environment for the new owner. And this helps reduce the stress level for the employees and helps make sure they can keep their jobs there as well. So it's a win-win for everyone. So what is a business transition? What is business transition planning? What's a business transition plan? It's the pathway for the owner to exit the company. The business transition plan helps maintain the business's key relationships with their clients, their suppliers, stakeholders, partners, financiers or lenders, employees as well, and government agencies. Over the years, a business goes along developing good relationships with all of these stakeholders, and that's one of the things you have to look at when you're selling a business on to the next owner, is maintaining those relationships. So the business transition plan prepares the business for transition, and it helps identify issues that a new owner may not have foreseen before he buys the business. There are 7 pathways to the transition of a business. There's an intergenerational transfer, basically handing the business down to the next generation, to the kids. There's a transfer between partners, sale to management, sale to employees, sale to a third party, and the partial sale or recapitalization, or there's an orderly liquidation. And these can be combined in a hybrid scenario. We're trying to avoid the liquidation, of course, and without a plan, I see many different business owners that's all they have in mind, because they don't know what else to do with their business, and they say to me, I don't know who would buy it. So we're trying to help out with that. So are business owners ready for the transition? 1/3 of business owners do not know where to start when you're talking about a succession plan or business transitioning. Nor do they know what options are available for developing a succession plan. So how does our transition plan program work? A consultant is paired with the company, with the business owner, to develop a plan. The plan is tailored to the business's unique needs. We have, right now, we've done 10 different succession plans last fiscal of 40 hours of consultant time each for the business, 10 different companies. We started in October of last year and ended in March. Right now, we've got 14 more on the go for this fiscal. We'll probably have, I don't know, maybe 16 or so by the end of this fiscal. And we have all kinds of different stages that a business is in between haven't really thought about the process of selling a business, but I need to sell, all the way up to I have a couple of people interested in the business, but I really need a valuation for my business. So, and everything in between. So our transition plan is tailored to the specific spot or the stage that our businesses are at. So these are 88% subsidized. The bulk of that is from ACOA funding. They typically last 2 to 3 months with total hours, billable hours from the consultant firm of 40 hours. And the project may include some of the following tools, depending on the requirements of the firm. Again, what stage they're at. It can be a business valuation, and we have, certified business valuators. And that's sort of a field of accounting where accountants get certified to be business valuators. They can do a financial analysis. They can streamline the operational processes of a business. They can develop business for sale, marketing, and communication strategies. And they can help seek buyers and potential investors. And they can also help plan labor requirements for the transition. A lot of companies need to do internal promotion. They need to bulk up in hiring, try and hire people to help offset the loss of a business owner. A lot of times a business owner embodies a lot of the functions of the company, and that's hard to pass on to a new business owner. So the consultants they take a look at the operational processes of the business, and they look at the labor, and they try and develop a plan of how a new owner is going to come in and assume the operation of a new business and make the transition smooth. So there's a fair bit to it in terms of operations. They also assess things like the potential opportunities of the firm to grow, and they also make a lot of recommendations on how to improve the value of the business on the selling market for the business owners. We've had some nice successes. This is Chuck's Diner in the Yarmouth Mall. We started this, as I said, in the fall of 2021 with 10 companies last year. And this is a testimonial from Chuck, one of the business owners. And he was able to make a decent transition and get a value for his business. If you can imagine a diner in the mall during the period of COVID, putting a value on an operation like that could be very difficult because his floor traffic was down significantly because of COVID. So it helped them get through that. So that brings me to why am I here tonight? Well, I wanted to show you a bit about what the REN does, but also my request to council is to please reach out to your constituents, business owners in your constituent who may be of the age or may be thinking about selling and retiring. Let them know that we have this program going, and to reach out to me, to us at the REN, and we can talk about it. And we can help set them up with a subsidized consultant to help them plan their transition. They'll take a look at the owner's personal finances as well, if that's needed, and help them determine what's the best way forward for them to sell the business and retire and that sort of thing. It doesn't have to be a retirement or a sale right away. They can make a plan over the next 2 or 3 or 5 years on what steps they're going to go through to sell their business. So, and we have a number of those underway as well. Especially those who think that it might be difficult to sell their business. I run into business owners who say, nobody's going to buy this place. And we don't want to see that. We want to help them out. So this program is here to help them. And like I say, for the benefit of the business owner and his or her family, but also for the benefit of the community, we want to take care of them. So that's my presentation, and certainly happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions for Rob? Counselor Surratt.
Rob, is a good presentation, by the way.
Thank you, thank you.
The goodwill, do you have, do these people that help the business, they must have experience maybe in goodwill?
Yes.
Some, you know, goodwill, you can't put your hands on it, you know, it's not like inventory. So
Yes.
those people do have, some-
We do,
you
yes.
do have some people. That's a hard thing to.
It is, and that's, the business valuation people. We have 6 consultants that, we went through a process and a request for consultant proposals, and we evaluated, quite a number, about 16 or 17, proposals. We got a list that we approved of 6 different succession planning consultants. 3 of them have certified business valuators on their payroll. And the valuation process uses 3 different methods for evaluating the business on the business. So they use 3 different methods. They come up with 3 slightly different values, and they take an average of those 3. And one of those methods takes in goodwill, actually. Yeah. The other was basically an asset valuation, and the other one just escapes me here now, but I'm not a valuator, obviously. But
Thank you for that.
all right.
Counselor D'Entremont.
Again, thank you for your presentation, and I guess as you were mentioning, if there's somebody in your community, there's one business owner that came up, and I wrote his name and his number, so you can give him a call.
Yep. Okay.
I want those papers back, by the way.
You want those back? All right, I'll write that down. There's
Before I forget, so.
there we
Thank you.
go. Okay. Confidentiality is quite important for folks, just because it may have taken the business a long time to develop a main customer. And the rumor of selling may cause that customer to say, oh, I better look for plan B. And then all of a sudden, he's looking for plan B and maybe finds a plan B that he really likes, and he's gone, whether or not you sell the business or not. Same can be said for key suppliers. If you're a distributor in the region and you worked a long time to get maybe a key manufacturer that you're the distributor of here in this region, you don't want your distributor or your manufacturer to say, oh, my distributor's going to quit. I better find somebody else. Your key employees, we know how the employment situation is right now. If your key employees go out and start looking for plan B, they might find a very good plan B and be gone. And you might lose these folks without even being ready to sell yet, too, just on the rumor. So confidentiality is key for folks. But if you run into someone who is interested in this or who might benefit from it, send them my way. We'll keep it confidential. But there are a lot of people out there who are very much in line. I can go to maybe 5 meetings with business owners in the course of a day, and maybe 3 of them will stop me and say, tell me about succession planning. I haven't been thinking about it, but I really want to hear about it, and I really need to know what can be done. So.
CAO Muse.
Thank you for the presentation. Through you, Madam Chair, a question on your consultants that you hire to value a business. Are they certified business valuators? Is that part of what they do?
There are 3 of our 6 succession planning consultants have certified business valuators in their firms. So all 6 of our succession planning consultants are succession planning consultants with experience in succession planning and business transition planning. 3 of them have certified business valuators in their firms for doing business valuation.
3 certified, 6 succession groups.
Yeah, succession groups, 6 succession consultant groups. 3 of them have certified business valuators in them.
Thank you. Felt obligated to ask.
No, that's good.
Thanks.
Yeah, yeah.
Counselor Bork?
Yes, thank you. Do you have any business cards
I
that we
do,
could have?
yes,
And we
yes.
could, because I know, I think a couple places where I
Okay.
can drop some off.
for sure. And I will, I'll send a follow-up email as well, to make sure you have my coordinates and information on that as well, so, for sure.
Are there any other questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you very much, council, for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Next on our agenda, number 4 is the adoption of minutes. So our minutes for November 8th, 2022 for our regular council meeting. Somebody willing to move those minutes?
So move.
Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Saulnier. Questions on those minutes? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Next, we have business arising from the minutes. We don't have anything there in particular. Number 6, we have 7-day notice to council. 6A, Article C49, Council Procedural Policy. There was an attachment sent to us, and our executive assistant also gave everybody a hard copy here tonight as well. So this was the policy that we had. We've had a little bit of conversation around it. We've discussed looking at the way that our council meeting versus our committee of the whole meetings have been running, and are we doing things as we should be doing? Should we be having 2 council meetings? So those were, and should we change the nights? Should we change the times? Those are all different conversations that we had. So it's all been compiled into this draft policy that is, we could pass it the 7-day notice tonight or not, but it's up for discussion. So we have the executive assistant, Chantal Newell, if you would like to speak on this, you are free to do so.
Perfect. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
So one thing I'd like to point out to council that since I have given you a hard copy, there is one change I want you to notice. It is in Section 9 and Section 11, I believe. It is under the regular council meeting order of business and the executive council meeting order of business. There will be another policy coming forward regarding this, but it says invitation to stand and move. So this was an initiative introduced by Argyle Recreation that fosters a culture of movement to enhance employees and councillors' physical and mental health and wellness. This is to support and normalize adding movement to meetings. So it is a policy that is looking to come forward as well for passage. However, it has not come forward to you yet, but it's looking to include that invitation to stand and move in all meetings of Argyle. So I just wanted to point that out to you. The other thing that I want to point out is that I have highlighted a few things in blue that has been on the attachment. And those are basically decisions that I would like for council to make. So the first one that I'd like to point out is Section 8.3 and Section 10.3 are regarding the same thing, the time limits on the meetings. So I heard from you guys that some of you were kind of going back and forth on whether we should have the 3-hour and 2.5-hour time limits, or if we should keep it the same that our bylaw says, which would be Section B. So basically, I would like you to make a decision whether A or B, which one you would prefer for that one, for Section 8.3 and 10.3. And then we have Section 10.2. The other thing that I heard was that we would prefer, that council would prefer to not have the executive council meeting start at 5:30, but 6:30. So that is an option for you to decide on there, Section A or B, that I would like you to decide. The next thing I would like to point out is that Councillor Surratt brought up a good point, that the inaugural meeting, why don't we just have it at 6:30 instead of 6 o'clock like the rest of our meetings? So I changed that. That says 6:30 in there. And the other thing I would like to point out that Councillor Surratt also questioned was who can remove stuff from an agenda. So I added in a clause that says 11.4 with the discretion of the CAO. That says that all documentation submitted for the meeting is subject to be removed from an agenda should the presiding officer or chair feel that there is not enough to fully support the item in question. So it is the discretion of the chair or the presiding officer that it is called as well. So that was all that I had to point out. So I will answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, so we have some direction, though. You definitely would like some questions answered tonight for a few of those items. Okay, we can do that. Are there any questions before we start any discussion? Is there any questions of clarity that you're looking for Ms. Newell? No? Okay. So let's look then at number 8.3. So 8.3, we have two options. A, all regular and special council meetings shall be no more than 3 hours long unless a motion to extend the meeting is made. Or 8.3B, no new business shall be discussed after 10 p.m. at a regular or special council meeting. So what is the wish of council? Do we want to put a time limit or do we want to leave it as is?
So for starting at 6:30,
Councillor Surratt. Sorry. Go ahead.
For myself, thank you, Madam Chair. For myself, nothing later than 10 p.m. is what I feel. It should be, make sense to me. Anyhow, that's the side that I'm looking at.
Councillor Bork?
Yes, thank you. Depends on what time we start the meeting. So if all meetings are gonna be started at 6:30, so 6:30, and if we don't go after 10, that's almost 3.5 hours. That's a long meeting, unless we have something really that we have to discuss. So I would go for A, no more than 3 hours long. And even that is, to me, it's almost too long.
Thank you. Warden Muse?
My view is that a 3-hour meeting, after 3 hours, you start getting tired. And that means it's 9:30. We're only looking half hour more by going to B, I guess. But I think a meeting should be able to be handled in 3 hours. And again, if anything came up that we can always extend it anyway by motion.
Thank you. Councillor Donchereau?
I guess I was along the same line as everybody with for the 3 hours. If we start at 6:30, it brings it to 9:30, and then we can extend it if we want, I guess. So, so I guess we do have that option. They're almost the same, but different.
Mm-hmm.
How's that?
Councillor Saulnier?
Thank you. Making a motion to extend a meeting might cover this, but I'm concerned, I haven't seen it yet, might never see it, but I'm concerned that there may be a crisis at some point that we may be involved in, and that it takes a lot more time. We might be here till midnight, who knows? And we may not be able to adjourn the meeting before that. So I think we should err on caution on that, maybe have a clause, especially for something that might affect that will not put us, in jeopardy, so to speak, to have to close the meeting. That's my concern there.
Councillor Boudreau?
3 hours is long enough, I feel, like the rest of you.
Councillor Digdon?
Thank you. I feel as though 8.3A, you're still having your 3-hour meeting, but at the same time, if there is a crisis or whatever, it is giving you that option where you can make a motion. If the motion passes with a majority, then you can extend it if you have to keep talking on the crisis or whatever at hand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think the majority, I feel the same way. I feel like 3 hours is long. I mean, I know not everybody works, but I know that I do. I have a full-time job, and then today I had a meeting after that full-time job, and then this is another meeting, and sometimes by 9:30 you hear wah, 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 wah. And it does get a little bit long. So I think that if we're going to be effective, but I agree, if there is an emergency and we do need to extend for some, it is in there. 3 hours long, unless a motion to extend the meeting is made. So that is in there kind of as that protection piece. So I feel like the majority of us are good with that. Councillor Surratt, are you good with that? Are you okay with going with that?
For me, yeah.
Okay. Okay. And, okay. Do you need a motion for that or no? Because it's, okay, so you have your answer for that one. Let's look at 10.3 is similar. 10.3A, all executive council meetings, which is what we used to call our committee of the whole, shall be no more than 2.5 hours long unless a motion to extend the meeting is made, or no new business shall be discussed after 10 p.m. at an executive council meeting. What is the wish of council? Do we want to go with option A or option B? 2.5 hours? Is there anybody, how about this? Is there anybody opposed to 2.5 hours? And again, remember, we can make a motion to extend if necessary. Okay? Seeing none? Okay, option A. So then,
No,
sorry,
That's okay.
Board Muse?
No, and I asked a question of 2.5, why 2.5 for one and 3 for the other? But if you look at the agendas, there's no presentation
Yeah.
on this one, which, well, we saw tonight. I mean,
Right.
that's a half hour,
It
right?
extends.
That we won't have to deal with on that meeting, so, yeah. So that the amount of business that would be there would be a little less to deal with.
Thank you. Then we have 10.2 that we need a decision on. 10.2A, executive council meetings will be held on the last Thursday of each month, beginning at 5:30 unless otherwise decided by council. Or option B, executive council meetings will be held on the last Thursday of each month, beginning at 6:30 unless otherwise decided by council. Councillor Digdon.
Thank you. I guess there's no point in hiding it. I was one of the ones that asked for the 6:30. Just because our meetings now are at 6:30, it seems to work good for a lot of the counselors. And that, I think, by what I see as far as people not making it and that. So, but I would prefer 6:30 myself. Now I'm only one person and one counselor. Thank you.
Anybody else? Councillor Boudreau.
6:30 works best for me.
Okay. Any others? Councillor Sonia?
5:30 could work for me or would work for me, but I would have to vote for 6:30 because of the working. So, yeah.
Thank you. So is there, how about this? Is there anybody opposed to 6:30? Is there anybody who has a dying wish for 5:30? Okay, so 6:30 works. Okay. Okay, got that. Were those were the big ones that you wanted answered? Okay. So those are the big things she needed answered for tonight. Are there any other questions or comments for her? So we have the option with those changes to approve the 7-day notice. Are we ready for that? Yep. Councillor Digdon.
Just wondering, as one that I know some of us question that, all document, 11.4, all documentation submitted for the meeting is subject to being removed from the agenda should the presiding officer or chair feel there's not enough to fully support the items in question. Now, I don't know how that works. I know in other areas how it works, by what I've seen and by watching council meetings, that I know sometimes if the councilors want to bring up something, it can be taken off the agenda or not added to the agenda by either your warden or deputy warden. And I honestly don't know sometimes if that really, if you got a majority of councilors wanting to bring it up, I honestly don't know if that's not an abuse of power. And I've also seen where with some councils where it's caused quite the rifts amongst councilors. And I don't know if that's the road where we want to go down, really, myself. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Surratt.
Councillor Digdon, you beat me to it. Here's where I'm coming from, and please don't think I'm picking on anybody, because I'm not, please. I find that when it comes to stuff on the agenda, if somebody has a presentation, not a presentation, you've asked people to come to a meeting because there's something that's going to be on the agenda, And first thing, let's say, I'll say for myself, that I'm working somewhere all day, I've been at my cottage doing something. I get home and I look on the agenda and it says there was supposed to be something on there. And I've got people who are coming 5 o'clock. I've got to call all these people, don't come, it's been taken off the agenda. I feel that this should be a decision as a council or a 24-hour notice. This is what I feel, or a 24-hour notice put there prior to that, so that if there was a reason, yeah, okay, there's a reason you don't have enough information. Like one thing that happened a while back, there was not enough information, great. But I think there should be side check there that it just can't be taken off because you've got people coming, or there's a presentation going to be made on some item, people are coming, and then the people arrive, and the first is off the agenda, well, why was it? So if we had a 24-hour notice, that would be fair to me. Anyhow, that's, do you know if there's anything, this will go to, if you don't mind, to our CAO. Does the MGA address that at all, anywhere in the MGA, Mr. CAO? Or do you know, maybe?
I would doubt sincerely that the MGA would say
Okay.
something that specific. However, you have said, and you continue to say, that you want to follow Robert's Rules of Order
Yes,
in order to conduct business.
yes.
And what Robert's Rules of Order would tell you, and I'm not a parliamentarian, but what I would say that it would tell you is that there has to be a good balance between obtaining appropriate information for the rest of council and also the liberty or freedom for one councillor to bring something to the agenda. So your idea around notice has a lot of validity to it.
Yeah.
You're quite right. Like so you want to measure, so you want to be able to bring it to topic, but you also want to give the staff, if they have to go get something, enough time to bring it to bear. You also, to your point around everybody being busy, you also want to give council enough time to read what you might be proposing if you are the one proposing. So if you give that notice, you might actually achieve that. And so if you had that, let's say 20, and maybe we don't have enough information, but we would leave it on the agenda and say, look, staff doesn't have enough information on this right now. It could be deferred to the other meeting. If you met that 24-hour notice period or whatever period to determine, that could be done. That respects your voice, but it also respects the need for all councillors to have enough time to understand what you're bringing to bear. So that's the purpose. Where you land on that would be great. And some of the things that you want to discuss have nothing to do with staff. It may be a political issue that has nothing to do with our work. And as long as the rest of council understands and knows in advance it's coming, that would be the appropriate way to do it, whatever that looks best for you.
Thank you.
Councillor Dontremont.
So thank you for that explanation, CEO Muse. I was thinking, like, we start the meeting and we add things on the agenda. Well, I add something on the agenda, maybe not one person around this table knows about it. And then, it becomes, you might, in plain words, get blindsided, right? And I know in the past, there's a few times we were blindsided, like this topic comes up and we start discussing it and we basically know nothing about it. And it's hard to, make decisions or, so what about those? Do we add in a policy or a line somewhere about, about the items that we just add on, because those can be dangerous too, so.
Madam Chair, I presume that question was my way because you were
Yes, it
kind of
was.
looking at me when you're, that would be your first hint. I would say that depends on the complexity of the issue. I know that staff kind of like wiggles in their seat a little bit when they don't have enough warning for stuff because they want to support you, right? So there are those occasions. Now, if it's a district community grant, that to me is different than, a fire district change. So we could certainly draw out more information either here or in another policy that addresses those specific items. How do things get added to the agenda, for instance? And we've got people trained in that area much more than I do, and learning very quickly that could help that along because that's an important one. We know you're busy. We know sometimes it's last minute when you want to put stuff on the agenda. That's not necessarily fair for the rest of them, but you do want to get your business done at the same time. We could draft policy specifically on that if we feel like it's an issue. But I would say that, look, that's why we say as staff, we would like to get a letter for the district community grant request on that Friday before the Tuesday meeting so that we can actually add it to the agenda, you can read it and then, and be informed. So, I'm not a big fan of adding stuff at the last minute because people need to be prepared. But we understand that doesn't happen. And I'll leave it to you whether or not you want policy or a process around that. I'll leave that to you.
Thank you. Councillor Saunier?
Thank you. I look at all these decisions as a way to serve the people, not so much how we work, but the way to best serve the people. And I can honestly say that I totally agree with Councillor Surratt's opinion on all of this. I think I remember well when Councillor Surratt was personally affected by a decision. And I kind of felt bad because I knew the people that were supposed to come here were turned around at the last minute. So I'm just saying that we should avoid that at all cost. And I think Councillor Surratt's suggestion is got my 100% support. Thank you.
Councillor Digdon?
Thank you. All very good, valid points around. And yeah, and I think the only thing though, if it's any of real a necessity to bring up, at least we've got that notice of motion at the end of each meeting that we can bring up. You know, as of next week or 2 weeks time, I will be bringing this motion forward, or I'll be bringing this information forward. At least then it can help the rest of council get prepared. And again, the only thing though I reiterate, and I even added on 11.4 here, and just in my own words, unless it is a majority rule of council. And the only thing I do find there, and I'm not saying whatever, you know, happen here, but at the same time, I find that some of these policies and protocols that we may be setting can also flow over to the next council that's coming in or whatever. So, you know, as far as like I say, just, you know, you could have a majority, and it has happened in Nova Scotia, believe me, where your warden or deputy warden would not allow it to be brought up at the meeting, although you've had a majority of your councillors wanting to bring it up. And it can get for pretty testy meetings. And that's just something I'd love to avoid because, you know, we all work too well, I've said it before, and we don't want to go down that road as far as I'm concerned. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Donaldson?
Yeah, I like Ellen's suggestion that we have a policy for what can be added to the agenda on that evening, because I'm not going to mention no names, but there has been councillors notorious for bringing stuff on at the last minute, and they were major decisions that they wanted to be made, like on a lot of it financial, and so you can't spring that on us without proper documentation. But like you say, there is some small items that could be added, but I would like to see a policy where you just can't add something, especially if it needs some kind of a documentation to go with it. And but yeah, I've seen well, we probably some of us have seen the other side of this, so it can get out of hand.
Chantal?
Through you, Madam Chair. Sorry, I don't want to keep this going for much longer, but I just wanted to mention that there is in some cases that some councils will do at the beginning of a meeting if they want to add something to an agenda. It has to be a majority wish of council to have it added to the agenda. I learned this just last week, actually. So I wanted to bring that and propose that to you guys as well, that is also an option. And I can also add that all documentation submitted for the meeting is subject to be removed from an agenda, but I can put something in there about a 24-hour notice if that is the wish of council.
Any other comments on this? Okay, seeing none. For me, I know when it comes time to chair a meeting, I don't just arrive to the meeting and chair. I prepare ahead of time. Lots of times I will meet with the CAO even the day before, or, you know, a day or two before. And there have been times where even the CAO has said to me, we don't have enough information on this. We can't bring this forward. We're not ready yet. And so for me, when I read that, I agree with that because I chair the meeting, right? And I feel like I rely on staff to say, okay, help me with this. because sometimes I read things and I'm really not sure what they mean. And I ask the CAO or the deputy CAO, can you help me with this? And sometimes it comes down to, we don't really have enough for that. So I'm not sure. And that is the situation we're talking about, is what had happened that night, right? And it was late and it was last minute and we were in a weird situation at the time, right? But for me as the chair, when I chair a meeting, I feel more prepared coming to chair a meeting knowing we have enough information. So that's when I read that, I was like, I like that because I know that I myself want enough information to present. And it's not that we won't add it to an agenda. It's just sometimes it's not added that night. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's not that I feel like we're saying, nope, we're not putting that. We're not talking about that. It's just we need the information. And in that case, we didn't feel like we had everything. And it was a financial decision that wasn't budgeted, right? So it was all of those pieces. So, I mean, I will definitely, go along with whatever council, but I just wanted you to understand that for me, that's what that meant for me. And that made sense to me. I'm not sure how the warden feels, who also chairs meetings, but that's, for me, that's how I read that. CAO?
Not going to belabor this. What I heard based on the conversation is that we have work to do on this policy to add, in my opinion, Appendix B. So we have an Appendix A that says procedures and motions, but Appendix B would be how to add an agenda item to the meeting. So we wouldn't do it by separate policy, but we would include it in this one. We can do that for you, as well as consider some of the changes based on this conversation. We might provide you more than one option for the next meeting. I think we've heard the issue enough to know what you're thinking generally. We'll give you options to select one. And then the how you add agenda items to the meeting, including when the deadline is, will be in your appendix, because you have to also think from the perspective of the warden or chair that they have to manage that situation and prepare accordingly. And it will probably speak to items of a fiscal nature. And we may even put in like financial nature, like outside of district community grants, like we may take that out of the equation because we know how that works for you. As long as we get a letter, I'm good from a staff perspective, because there's not, all we need as staff is, does it fit the policy? So what we don't want is for council to say, hey, can we give $500 to GECO nonprofit organization, and they actually didn't qualify. Or Councillor Surratt didn't have any room in his budget. He already spent his full budget and didn't realize, right? So we want to add that protection for you. So as long as we have the letter, we could do that, right? So that will be done in Appendix B. I could go on, but I won't. But I think what it means is that you don't really have to give us a 7-day notice today. I think we need to go back and bring it to you for December. And then at that point, you could probably make a 7-day.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
that makes sense. That makes sense.
Is that okay, Chantal?
Councillor Surratt, did you have something you wanted to add to that?
Yes, but not on this, not on, but on this thing, but not on the subject we're talking.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, am I all set? It would be 15C. And this will be up to council. I just want to bring this up to maybe to make it work easier, but maybe I'm wrong, but anyway, I'm willing to listen. So when it comes to somebody with a conflict, disclosure of pecuniary interest, 15C. You put me friggin' lunette. I'm lost here, sorry about that, people. I don't have my glasses, say that in English anyhow. Forgot them. This cataract surgery sucks. Anyhow, what it is that, so when you're in a conflict of interest, you should pull yourself out if you're on video, on Zoom. So it says in the policy, and Chantal, correct me here, I can't read it too well, but it says that the person should disconnect themselves. Then I asked Chantal in a private message, I think it was, so how did they come back on? And I think, Chantal, am I right, from what you answered back, the CAO or the chair could call them to come back on? Let them know. So I was thinking, could we, instead of that person that said of having somebody call back, so you're completely disconnect yourself from Zoom, couldn't they just get their video off? Would that work? And maybe you wouldn't. Just get their video off and just put a blank face and please, I'm just bringing that up so I can understand. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair.
Yes.
This is, the following words are for your protection.
Oh,
Definitely no.
okay.
Because
Very good.
when you take your video off, there's two things I don't know about your situation. Number one is, where are you? Number two is, who's also there? So if you have a conflict of interest, it does not satisfy us as the group
Yep.
to say that you're not in the room because you're listening. Now, I mean, obviously, if you spoke, you'd definitely be in the wrong. But even being present is a problem because because of the limitations of video. I'd say, honestly, if you have a conflict of interest, your best bet live would be to say, this is the topic I'm in a conflict in, and you stand and you walk out.
Right.
And that way there is no doubt in anybody's mind that you weren't trying to influence people by nonverbal cues or of any sort. That's the best protection for yourself. And I say that to all of you to protect you. That's the
Perfect.
reason. It's not to protect us. You would be in the hot water, right? So that would be a big no. It would have to be disconnected.
Makes complete sense.
Okay.
Thank you.
Counselor Sonia, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yes, I just want to go back to the agenda for a second.
Mhm.
This would apply as well to special meetings. And I assume at those special meetings which I've been part of, you would be prepared because you're calling the meeting, but we would not be prepared necessarily.
Mhm.
But the same rules would apply for that, or is there anything different given for these special meetings?
Special meetings are the warden. I don't chair those, so I'm not sure. Go ahead, sorry.
The special meetings, usually we have notice. We've had a few where there wasn't any notice. Something that had to be done at that time, and we've called a special meeting and asked who can be here at 3:00 this afternoon. Very, very seldom do we do that. It has to be a special circumstance that we need to deal with this today, right? Something that we probably didn't know 2 days ago that this was going to happen, okay? Other than that, I would say that there's sufficient notice ahead of time that we're going to have a special meeting, unless I'm wrong here, but I think most of the time, probably 99% of the time, we have a couple of days' notice that we're going to have a special meeting, okay? So that would be my answer to that. I don't know if that's satisfactory or not, or if there's something out there that I don't know. Are we calling these meetings more often without the notice, or are we not? I didn't think we were.
To that point, the only difference or the only point I'm trying to make is that we were trying to be clear with what was on the agenda,
Oh,
what was
okay.
going to be discussed. And in this case, in a special meeting, we just get the little outside touch of what's going on.
Yes.
And it's different.
Yeah,
And
that's
I'm
right.
wondering if it's handled different
That's right.
from what we're proposing.
You see, a lot of our special meetings, a lot of them are in-camera meetings as well, right? And we have to be careful what we're going to talk about, and we can't give details of what we're going to talk about on this, because then it's no longer in camera, right? And so I guess my answer to that would be that that's the reason you're not getting all the, if it's like any other item here. Sometimes we have an item, we know it's there, but maybe there's no attachment, so we have to wait till we get here to hear what the attachment. All we know is there's going to be a discussion on a certain topic, right? And a lot of the special meetings would end up like that as well, so.
Did you want to add to that, CEO?
I would say that the MGA is very clear on this one. And so the MGA does talk about 24-hour notice at the discretion of the warden. So the MGA, can't remember which section, says that a special meeting may be called at the discretion of the warden and giving you counsel 24 hours notice. So you require notice. So we don't require to advertise that to the general public at that same time. The warden does have that unique power. The question is what can you speak about in a special council meeting? Because what we would typically talk about might be political in nature, maybe not financial. I don't know that we would have an urgent meeting to spend $50,000 somewhere, Because what we would say is, well, that actually belongs to a meeting of council with the appropriate request for decision, et cetera, et cetera. So it might be, I know that there have been times where special council meetings were called legally, and the nature of the discussion has not generally been to spend a ton of money. It has typically been like a negotiation issue that needs to be brought or something of that nature. I can offer council some language around that as part of the amendment. So yes, you can call a special meeting. However, it ought to, exclude certain things so that you don't feel like you're being hijacked by a big decision with no information to support you. So the policy can do that. I can't override the MGA. And the MGA says 24 hours, the warden can do that. But we can restrict the type of things we discuss in those meetings. And if by your wish, we can certainly try that here with this policy.
Warden Muse, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I had, when I had my mic on, I wanted to respond to what Guy said about signing off. Rather than wait for a call, what you can do, you can ask to go back on at any time, and they let you on. It says the host will let you on. They decide. So once you're off, then you can go right back on and try to get onto the meeting. But she won't let you on until the discussion is over.
Great. Great.
Councillor D'Entremont, thank you for being patient.
Yeah, just, when it comes to special meetings, I guess I've probably been to a few, and most of the time it's only one item. Most of the time it's in camera, and I would say 99.9% of the time, senior staff will brief us right away. That's how it starts. Sometimes it's time sensitive, but so far, I think in my experience, it seems to work. But again, with 24-hour notice to make sure people can actually attend, right? So that's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Good. Any other comments, questions on that? Okay, so that will come back to us at our December meeting, and we'll think about accepting the 7-day notice then. Thank you for that. Next item, number 7, for decision and discussion, 7A, request for tax write-off. There is an attachment of, we've done this before in the past. CAO, would you like to take this one?
Typically, minor items are just taken care of administratively, like $1 here, $2 there. We're not going to bring that to council. It's just a waste of your time and talent. This one in particular, though, is quite a bit larger. It is interest bearing, and it's quite large. The reason for the write-off request is that there was an adjustment to this person's tax bill, and through not the error of that person, through either the error of PVSC or the municipality of the district, it was not adjusted before the interest got applied. So the decision was made, or ought to have been made, months before the interest accrued. We found this after that happened. We resolved the issue, but the interest had to be written off in order for, we believe it ought to be written off because it has nothing to do with that customer. The customer did everything in their power to avoid. So that's why we're recommending that to be written off.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Digdon?
And I feel as though the right thing to do, we can't leave that bill for that person, although it was, it's not their fault by no means. So I'd make the motion that we write off $245.67.
Thank you. Do we have, seconded by Councillor Work? Any questions on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Next, we have 7B, bylaw 42, outdoor light pollution first draft. So there is an attachment of 17 pages. We've talked about this just kind of briefly. This is for discussion, so we're going to have our CAO talk on this one for us. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Very quick. Purpose isn't to pass this bylaw or even do first reading today. Okay, so just so that, and so that means I'm not going to go in all sorts of details for you and potentially bore you. I think what I'd like to bring to the attention of council is that we do have businesses in the municipality of Argyle that are very interested in preserving the light or reducing light pollution in the area. We know and have paid for the certification of our dark sky, most of which occurs in the Tobiatic, Mercy, Tobiatic area, but some of it hits East Kent, Quinnan, and parts of Clare, and even parts of Shelburne. So there are quite multiple municipalities that might be impacted by this, both positively and negatively. Positively because that's where the darkest skies exist, and negatively because they don't want that to change. The purpose of this bylaw is, first of all, educational. This is the part that that I've been struggling with in preparing this, and I will tell you how that happened, how we got to this point. Is that we have a situation where very few people in this municipality are fully aware of the way that you can reduce light pollution in the municipal, or anywhere for that matter. And we're trying to find a way to educate people, as well as, where necessary, help businesses actually save money by doing light differently for their businesses. So most of the language in here does not speak to the fact that you can't have lights, because that's just not something we would be willing to bring to your attention. It's not something that, from a staff perspective, we'd be ready to support. People need lights. They need lights for a variety of reasons: for safety, for security, for certification, for export. There's all sorts of reasons why people might need that. So you will find in here that there are certain exceptions to this bylaw. There are companies that are specifically exempted from this bylaw. And what you will also find is that there's plenty of time to transition any sort of issue that anybody might have in here from a business or a residential perspective around lighting. This was done intentionally because we talk a lot about this idea of grandfathering, that when you put a rule in, oftentimes what happens is, well, the rule applies future only. But when you're talking about nuisance and noise, it's different, okay? So it's like anybody who's blaring their ghetto blaster I just dated myself, ghetto blaster at 10 o'clock at night, blaring it so everybody can hear that. Well, they may not have done that before, but now that's a nuisance. So the nature of the nuisance and that grandfathering clause is something you can see that it's a little different in this case, okay? We certainly don't want additional lights that are halogen, high intensity, aiming towards the sky. That's generally what this says, okay? What it says is, it gets real technical, and I'm not expecting council to be technical. I don't know half the technical of this, but I do know that the technical has been vetted by lawyers and astro tourism organizations across the nation. So wasn't just made up. Certainly some of these things in the appendix around appropriate lighting fixtures, et cetera, that has been established by those that are interested in preserving the sky, quite frankly. Royal Astronomy has endorsed some of these things as well. So I don't need for you to be experts at how many lumens or Kelvin or whatever, volts or whatever the light needs to be. But I think generally speaking, what we're talking about is low intensity aiming down. I mean, that's the non-technical description, low intensity aiming down. We have a lot of organizations in this municipality that require lighting to do business. That would probably be your biggest challenge in terms of how we would address those situations. I'm thinking of wharves. I'm thinking of fish plants. I'm thinking of some of the larger organizations. The good news is that many of these organizations are very far away from our dark sky. So we're really, the further away you are from that certification area, the less intrusive this bylaw becomes, okay? So there are certain things that say specifically, like if you're in the certification area, you can't have like a lit panel that says, Guy Sudet nonprofit organization, turn left with lights. You can't have that, okay? It has to be dark, okay? Sorry, I keep picking on you, but you're right ahead of me, and I know you can take it. So So you'll find a lot of yellows in here. This is a brand new bylaw, so the yellows just represent things that our lawyer may have asked us to add because they weren't clear. I have legal review of this because this would likely be the first of its kind in Nova Scotia. So the first question we have to ask ourselves is, can we define light pollution as a nuisance? The MGA says we can have nuisance bylaws, but it is silent around whether or not light pollution is a nuisance. And we're of the opinion that it is. So, and in this bylaw, you'll see how there's certain examples of how it can be quite intrusive, that the light can be like lit right on a road, for instance. There are bad examples of bad lighting behavior that we would like to avoid. This bylaw does not change the lighting habits of your neighbors. And they might be bigger offenders than you. If there's a town, they're typically a bigger offender because there's more lights, and et cetera. And this is not to be critical of other communities at all. I'm just saying that it limits yourself to the boundaries of your own municipality, but it also gives you an opportunity to lead. And you might say, well, hey, look, we've got this bylaw. This is what we did with it. We're going to tweak it, and you should take this on, you know, town or municipality, as part of your responsibility, because this doesn't just impact our own municipality. So this is a draft. I'm going to stop there. I really just want to talk to you about the why. Like, why did we get here, and how did we get here? Like, where do these policies come from? Where did the bylaws come from? And the fact that legal has gone through. So this is past the test of legal already. It doesn't mean it can't be changed. I just didn't want to bring you something to have to change it 100 times because it wasn't consistent with the law. That would be the extent of my presentation. I'm open to questions or even just guidance as to what to do, like where we go from here. And so, yeah, I'll stop right there.
Are there any questions? Councillor Surratt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've read it a couple of times. I'm telling you, there's a lot of work that was done in there. No question. I just have probably a question that I'm not comfortable with in this bylaw, and it's the grandfathering of non-conforming luminaries. So I'll give an example, like Alain, our CEO said, like wharves. We have lighting on wharves, car dealerships, you know, canopy lights on at a gas station, canopy lights. There's a lot of money. Money invested there. Let's face it. At fish plants, they've got a lot of lights that you know, if you have to go and change, there's going to be a lot of money involved. And I see it says August 31st to 2026 that they have that they have to conform with this bylaw. I don't agree with that, with the grandfathering part of a date. Myself, for sure, most of these fish plants, these car dealerships, they're going to wait till August 31st, 2026, more than likely, before they get hit with this. And then it's going to cause a lot of anger, in my opinion, confusion, and we're going to get the brunt of this. So I feel on that part, I don't know what the solution is. I think grandfathering means grandfather, and then we should leave it at that. That's one opinion I have. The other item, then if we're going to go that way, should we not send this to the businesses that have this, and let them, especially the grandfathering part, to avoid maybe a big hullabaloo from these companies, you know, to come up. That's just a suggestion I have, maybe on that part. Is the grandfathering part that I have. Because I know some of these boats, I had a situation at the wharf, at the Diddle, where somebody's trying to so-called bed and breakfast, and they say the lights that are there are too bright, and the people that come there, you know, it's going to be too bright, especially on foggy nights, you know, and there was a big powwow over this. We met with these people, and, you know, the fishermen told me, they said, we've had lights here for 35 years, and you're coming here to tell us that we have work to do at night. We come in with boats, and we can't do our work. We have big lights on our boats. Are they going to stop us from putting these big lights when you come in to flash, to pick up your traps, or whatever they do? And it's a big issue, and I don't think it's been settled yet. Another item was at our At the cemetery, we have a light that goes on our statues. And, the light had been off for 10 years. It had been off. Well, all of a sudden, the council of the day decided to put a light to get the statues back on. So people were proud of the statues that were given to the cemetery by the community. We put a light back there hadn't been there after 10 years. We put it there and, in Reds Island. And, the first thing, there's one person in the community that does night viewing of the stars, and I have no problem with them. But the big thing that came to us, one person has a telescope or something, and the rest of the community has to suffer. And the same thing at the wharf. The fishermen told me, we've been here for 100 and some odd years. There's only been power since the 46, 47. I realize that. But then all of a sudden, because one person wants to put a bed and breakfast, our lighting, our boats, our livelihood is impacted. And it caused quite a kerfuffle there. So that's the point I'd like to bring up, anyhow,
Thank you.
that's something I like to kind of challenge, I guess, on that. If there's a way on the grandfathering.
Madam
CAO?
Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
just to respond, first of all, this is excellent feedback. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
I think
yeah.
the engagement with businesses as part of the process
Yeah.
is just an indication that you care about getting it right. That can be done easily. I think it's from my perspective, something that we should do if we're going to represent you appropriately would be to make sure that we understand from the perspective of businesses, not just from the perspective of light pollution enthusiasts. I think you want the full picture, and it's not to say that one is right or wrong. It's not the point. It's that input. On the grandfathering thing, I do think that in doing that engagement, you might find more exemptions to this bylaw. And that's where you get away from this. So if you have certain businesses based on the feedback that give you a legitimate reason why lighting should continue exactly the way that they're doing it now, then they may be added under Section 6 exemption. So the bylaw doesn't apply to them anyway. So what we're trying to do is trying to avoid this blast of light.
Yes.
But recognizing that businesses also need lights to operate. The purpose of the date where you had an issue with it, I get it. The lawyer asked the same question and actually extended the date because I had it shorter. The reason for that is that it gives you enough time for education. So if we go out, we engage the businesses and we get changes and we get it mostly right, we're not going to get it fully right. And then between that period of time and that date, we might be able to educate them as to how to do this better. I'll give you an example. My light went out at Nova Scotia Power and at my front, and it took me a half hour to get my username and password, but then I got it. And then I had to do an online complaint to Nova Scotia Power. Worked very well. Nova Scotia Power came back and said, you had a halogen light before. When we replace it, we're going to replace it with an LED light. That LED light is going to cost you $10.99 a month. You used to pay $13.99 a month. So my point is this: we don't know how much money we can save on a new light, and if we knew that, maybe some of this would be beneficial to both. That's why I really like your idea
Great
of
point.
bringing it to the businesses before even making a decision. This is really this is what we did on a lot of bigger issues, and we knew this one would be controversial. So I hope I've answered most of all your questions.
You have.
And I'll stop there. I'm sure there's
Thank
other
you.
comments.
Councillor Digdon?
Thank you. When I first seen this come up, I thought, holy jumps. They heard what was going on in Pubnico, and they're gonna put a whole bunch of bylaws in here now. Anyway, it's no secret. I'm working with the West Side Improvement Society, and that's one of the things actually that I put out when I ran for council, was to try and get our sidewalk lit up down there in Pubnico. Because you hear Department of Health and everything say about participation and all this, and get people walking and all this, and you cannot walk in the sidewalk at night down home. It's not safe, and for security purposes, you definitely do need some lighting. So when I was saying this, I had nothing to do Monday or Sunday afternoon, so I took a drive out and seen Tim out in Quinnen at the observatory, and I left him some information about some of the lights that we are looking at, And I asked him to go over it and see what he thought of it and make recommendations for us. And because he knows a whole lot more about lights and he knows a whole lot more about the dark skies than what we do, or as far as what I do anyway. And I think, what we're doing out there, there's ways to do it better. And I hear this evening businesses about getting information out to businesses. Maybe we can get information out to residents as well. Years ago, we used to buy those Christmas lights, and they took God knows how many watts. And now you got these tiny little ones that takes a fraction of the wattage and shines twice as bright. So, I think educational purpose would be a great thing to get out there. And a couple of things I'd like to look at maybe is maybe incentives. If people were going, businesses or whatever, switching over, and some type of incentive, and it doesn't take much. Just recognition sometimes is enough to make people change. And and the only other thing I looked at, and I heard it again here this evening, and I feel as though as a municipality, we're saying, and it was our CAO, and I don't mean to put you on the spot by no means, but don't ask me anything about the technical stuff. I feel as though if we do this, we are going to have to be able to answer for the people, the technical stuff, because it should not be a burden on their back if they want to come over and help us with the dark skies and put that burden on them. I feel as though if we're going to make the rules and regulations, that it should be us coming up with the answers for them. And that's just my take on it. And I had a great meeting with Tim. And, like he says, by no means is he against lighting. By no means is he against sidewalk lighting or nothing like that. But I just feel as though he's, for lack of a better words, is definitely an expert as far as I'm concerned, because he knows way more about it than I do. And he's definitely there to work with us and to help us out on this. Thank you.
Thank you. But I think what you did is like, this is for our education, but what you did was go out and seek your own education as well, right? Because you're looking at lighting for sidewalks, and you want to make sure that you're doing things the best way possible. And so you sought out that information. And I think that's what it's about. It's about being aware, right, of our best options. Councillor Saulnier.
Thank you. This is most likely for our CAO. You mentioned that there's a designated area for the dark skies. So are we looking at double standard, different rules for different communities, so to speak? Is Guy's, Council Surratt's wharfs need, or do they have to comply with the same lighting as they would in the designated area? Is there a leniency there?
The answer is there are more certain, all of the compliance for lighting is the same regardless of where you're located here. If there, with the exception of certain additional luminary or illuminated options within that designation. So for instance, if and I think one of these examples is actually in your bylaw, if a sign was to be placed in Tuscan that was lit, that would be appropriate, provided that the lighting is on the top down versus having the light facing up towards the sky. So this bylaw would guide you in what is allowable and what isn't. That same example would be specifically excluded in the dark sky reserve because illuminated signage is not allowed in that area. Now that area is quite small when it comes to our municipality. I'm almost positive that that's the biggest difference. There may be another one in this bylaw that I've missed, but there are very few things that you cannot do in that area that you can do in other areas. This bylaw is silent around whether a wharf being so far away from that place would be subject to more lenient rules. It is silent on that. Where we try to address that is under the exemptions. So if it's a business that we can see that it requires the lighting for whatever reason, right now we talk about export. Like, because I know of one company, for instance, I know that if they don't have appropriate lighting, they cannot export their product to international waters. And that is contrary to what we would want as a municipality. We want that export. So that's an exemption. There may be more. And that's the value of going out to business and or residents, is that we might get that information to us more appropriately than the CAO telling you.
So just to follow up on that, there's more to lighting than just businesses. For instance, there are people that light up their backyard ponds for hockey in the wintertime, when we do get enough ice to do so. But it is private people with these kind of lighting sometimes. And I'm concerned that these people would not be able to afford the transition, and so there's something else to look at, is what I'm trying to say. Thank you.
Councillor D'Entremont.
I think CAO Muse answered the question. I was, again, since I have a few fish plants in my district, and again, the question of the lighting for export, so they would land under exemptions. Am I correct? Since you said it, I just want to confirm it again.
That would be correct.
Okay, great, thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments for the CAO on this? Okay, so you had some feedback. So what's our next steps with this?
Good question. So this requires more amendment.
Okay.
And we don't know the extent of that amendment unless we go out.
Okay.
So if you're adamant as a council that we should go out to our community and seek feedback specifically from residents and businesses, you may do so by motion today. And that would trigger the work for us to go out to them and get that specific information, come back to you with the result. There are some other things here. I don't think I can change this, or even working directly with Tim could change this to the point that'd be satisfactory to the community. So I think going to that would be your and then we would come back with a potentially modified bylaw based on that feedback.
Okay.
So you may do that by motion today.
Okay. Councillor Digdon?
Yes, I feel as though we should bring it out to the communities and to the people, let them think. And I honestly don't think we're talking about transparency and removing ourselves if there's conflict. And I honestly don't think dealing with Tim alone, and that right there is a conflict as far as I'm concerned, or could be a perceived conflict, because of course he's gonna want to keep everything dark, and I get along great with him, and so, and it would be for monetary gain on his part, so I'd be willing to make that motion that whenever staff, or alas, our CAO staff, has time, that they go out and at least, see what the public thinks of it and get feedback.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor D'Entremont. Any questions on that? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Thank you. Next, we have boundary review. So there is RFD of 2 pages. I feel like we should do a drum roll. You guys have done a lot of work on this. It's been a lot of work. So all of that work has come to a culmination. So our Deputy CAO, I'm going to hand the floor over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, we've been talking about this for a long time. I think it started back in February from a presentation from our CAO and kind of explaining the whole process. And I'll just kind of review a little bit of the process. I promise won't go too much in depth as the CAO would. And then kind of update us on where we're at with what we've done. So, and then hopefully from there, a decision can be made from council. So, as you know, the report needs to be done by the end of this year to UARB. And the first part of this process, we hired WSP and we did some public engagement. At the end, after they had done all their work, it was basically we had 2 decisions to make. One was, either 7 counselors or 9 counselors. In the September meeting, you guys made a motion to give us staff the permission to go out there and promote what people wanted. Did they want 7 counselors with, I would say, major amendments to the boundaries, or 9 counselors with only 3 districts being affected? So from there, staff went back and we did videos, we did maps, we posted those on our Facebook page, we posted that on our website. We also created a short survey for our residents to fill out. They could have done that within 2 minutes to do the survey. That was posted on our website, on our Facebook page. We also did a mail out with we sent emails, I should say, not a mail out, emails to over 30 emails that we already have in our bank to send out with that survey. We met with 9 community groups and made presentations around the boundary review and what did people want? Did they want 7 or 9? And when we met with those 9 community groups, we met with like over 150 people there, but some of them weren't even in our in our municipality. So it's not everybody that did the surveys. When we were doing those presentations, we even had made it simple for them if they knew how to use a QR code with their phones. That would bring them directly to the survey that they could do. And lastly, we did another open house here on November 15th, which nobody attended, unfortunately. But at the end of the day, since then, we did get surveys done. 110 were submitted. 70% of those surveys received agreed to stay, chose 9 counselors with amending 3 boundaries, and 30% chose 7 counselors and amending 8 out of the 9 districts. And I provide you a little more kind of a detailed snapshot of per district who voted. If you look in my sheet, I won't go into details in that, but and I've provided 2 suggested motion, 7 or 9. There's no suggestions from the office of the CAO because it's not our decision to make. It's a council decision, and so don't want to influence. Our role was to go back to the resident, provide them the details, get the facts, and share them with you guys tonight. And I think that's where we're at. I don't know if the CAO wants to add anything to that.
Okay,
Not a darn thing.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
thank you very much. So we have the information in front of us. Questions or comments? Warden Muse?
Well, again, there was a lot of work put into this, and I think from what I see with the results, we know basically people are happy with the way we are now with the 9. And if I may I can make a motion now and we can discuss the motion, but I will make a motion that we go with the 9 councillors with the 3 districts being affected, having to change 3 of the districts. And that would be my motion.
Do we have a seconder? Thank you. Questions or comments on that?
Question?
Councillor Digdon? Sorry.
Thank you very much. The only thing I was going to ask, and that if our CAO, just for people that may be watching or whatever, to explain why there has to be amendments of the 3 districts, that's all. Just for,
Do you mind?
or whoever, sorry if I asked the wrong person.
No,
Sorry.
I'll be brief. So what it comes down to is population parity. So for those that are watching today or in the future, the reason why we have to change the districts and their boundaries is that there are certain districts that grew faster than others. And one of the rules that the Utility and Review Board requires of us is to have the districts as equal as possible. There are exceptions to that, and by equal, I mean 10 within, below or over 10% of the average. So in this case, District 4 was well over that average, so we had to reduce District 4, and we made other adjustments that affected District 1 and, sorry, my apologies. District 5 was large. District 4 was actually a little lower. District 5 was the largest one, forgive me. So we had to reduce District 5, and of course, that impacted other districts, and those are Districts 1 and 4. District 4 will be, Hubbard's Point will be added to District 4, and those of District 4 are aware of that, or at least somewhat aware of that. District 5 will exclude SAR, Eaglebrook, and Rockville Point, and they'll be replaced, and East Kempt will join them, and that made the numbers work. And finally, District 1 lost both Kempt and Hubbard's Point, but gained SAR, Rockville Point, and Eaglebrook, and that's how the numbers were brought to the community.
It's like a whole new district.
Good?
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on that? Okay, so you made the motion. You seconded, right. Any other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. We made it under the deadline.
Yes, we did, thank you.
That's good. Okay, next we have 7D, the draft strategic plan. We have an attachment of 15 pages. CAO Muse, we're putting a timer. Just kidding.
I'm not sure where all this is coming from, to be honest. I really don't know. So you will see on screen, the screen above will have this. So I'm going to really blast through this very, very quickly. And
We
you'll
should have
believe
like
it
a
when
jar.
you see it. Yeah,
Dime
there should be a
everything.
swear jar for that. Or
Every time he says that.
every time that, yeah, I may as well put $20 in it to start. So this is a strategic plan that's been drafted and revised. We have talked about this a number of times. As you know, we've had some strategic planning conversations that were led by Kathy Jourdain, and we've had all sorts of conversations. But then we realized much has changed since, so we kind of went and revisited the situation. I'm not going to repeat every single thing that's in this PowerPoint. You've had it for quite a few days now, but I do want to just highlight that times they are a-changing, and I have kind of at a glance shown some of the things that we might be facing. I'll mention maybe three. And one of them is already old, soon to be positive announcements for a major rec asset in the region. That has been done. So now we know that there is a big rec asset, i.e. Mariner Center expansion in our vicinity. The 2024 World Acadian Congress is something that's going to happen. There is currently an innovation project for regional planning organizations, et cetera, et cetera. There's all sorts of things going on right now, both negative and positive, that I put it here at a glance just to inform council as to what we're dealing with right now. So the second page here is a bit more negative. So this is kind of a quick way to say here are your strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats. We don't want to call it that, but I just did. But basically page 2 talks about certain things that might be hitting us in a different way. Some of these things may be outside of your control. Lobster industry is currently thriving, yet there are peaks and valleys to pricing and supply. Climate change might be a threat to the livelihood of that particular fishing industry. Low access to local healthcare professionals. Residents are getting older and less comfortable in their homes as they become a larger burden as they age, et cetera, et cetera. Again, not going through all of these. These are here for you to look at. None of them are overly surprising to you, though it might be interesting to you to read them. What does this tell us, basically? What it tells us is that we've got a job to do. And again, just to highlight some of the things that it tells us, is that we got to change. Things are happening inside the municipality, all municipalities, not just our own, and we need to adapt. We need to modernize our operation. We need to find different ways to do business. We need to seek ways to find funding for ourselves so that we're less dependent on taxation, because we see for ourselves right now the impacts of things like inflation and increased fuel prices and how that might actually impact people's ability to pay their tax bill. And it will. This is the type of bill that people see once and they're never happy to see it. And understandably so. It's kind of like the insurance bill. It's the same. No offense, but it's a big bill. So, we have to be mindful, ever so mindful of what is happening to our residents and their affordability around this. There are some positive things that the situation tells us, like, we have opportunity for growth in our tourism market. We're well positioned for major renewable energy projects, some of which are happening already. Again, so that's what the situation kind of tells us. So again, that's just framing the conversation a bit. And I don't, again, because you've seen this, I'm not trying to ignore these things. They're important, but they're for you to read. The following is an assessment of our department. So in looking at our current situation, we've also looked at, well, how the heck what do we look like? So this has changed rather drastically in a year, part of which triggered by a sickness of one and the hiring of another. That the need of organizational change and how the departments work was a necessary thing. Oh, my goodness gracious. And I didn't have the mic on. Now I do. Okay, good thing that Nicole's was on. Probably picked up most of what I said. Or I'll start again. Did you want me to start again, Madam Chair?
No.
Oh, okay. All right, okay. just do this the next time, please. Thank you for being clear. So this shows you very quickly how our departments are set up. They're color coded somewhat to show how we do things. This has changed rather drastically, but the reason why we've done this, it's like, okay, we know we have work to do. How are we set up for the work? And that's really what the question is. So that's what we've assessed. Now our departments are clearer in definition, but we might see areas where we may need to inject time and energy. So in doing so, we also assessed, and this is a bit of the summary of that assessment in the next column that basically says, we can divide the type of departments and the type of work that we do in the following 6 areas. We have the Office of the CAO and Council. We've got planning and development. We've got corporate services, which is your finances, rec and cultural, environmental health, and safety and protection. So environmental health, for instance, would be Kyle's department. That would be wastewater, treatment, et cetera. That would be primarily his department. And just as an example, the other safety and protection, you're talking about fire inspection, you're talking about building inspection, you're talking about Renee's department. These services can be delivered internally or they can be delivered externally, and they do. They are also delivered externally. The assessment of the services has given us information in terms of where we need to focus our time and energy, and it highlights the importance of safety, economic development, transportation, health, environmental, library, et cetera. So the internal assessment tells us that there is, based on the assessment of the delivery of the service and the assessment of the service that we're looking at, it does tell us that safety and protection is a fundamental service that we deliver and is also a fundamental service we need to improve. Things like fire protection and other similar protection services are needed. For instance, the fire inspection person was hired not a year ago. So prior to that, we were relying on part-time services to fulfill that need. Now that we have a full-time fire inspector, which is also a bylaw enforcement officer, I think you as council have seen the difference. That you've seen that there is a lot more protective services being provided. And I would call bylaw enforcement protective services because it protects the residents from nuisances and other things that we say are important. So that as a for instance, that's how we may have improved things internally, but there are other services that we may have to improve externally, and fire services is number 1 on that list. That's been what we have identified. It also tells us what services that we provide and what services we buy. So for instance, economic development, the Office of the CAO may look at that, Development Office may look at that, but it's the Western REN that actually leads in economic development. So we don't actually to the point of Mr. Stevenson's presentation, he's talking about succession planning. We don't deal with that, right? That's the Western Ren that does that. So I'll keep moving. So based on external and internal services, and when I say external, I'm also talking about things like policing and other services that we provide. So I'm not just picking on fire. There's other services that are protective in nature that we hire other people to do on our behalf. So those will have to be part of the conversation. Revisions to the vision, mission, and goals. There has been major staffing changes and great ideas that came out of this. But what we're going to do here is show you what it was and what we're proposing. And we'd like your input on this. So before was a rather lengthy vision statement, celebrating its unique heritage and culture, investing in its future. Argyle is a magnet for innovation and growth and a place of choice for people, families, and businesses from around the world to call home or visit. That was what we did through our facilitated session. So through our staff conversations and semi-facilitated sessions, we came up with something rather simple, much simpler, something that we can all remember a lot more and maybe even cite it. And it's Argyle is the community of choice to invest, live, and play. So what we attempted to do is make it simpler, make it something that people can really resonate, like that it's, oh, okay, that's cool. Community of choice to invest, live, and play. The first one is very wordy, and I don't want to be offensive to it, but there's a lot of like words in there that may set people off in a different way. Like innovation is a buzzword, right? So people might not know what that means necessarily, or like, you know, everything you do in the municipality has to be innovative. No, that's not the case. We just want to be the place that people choose to invest, live, and play. Okay, so that's the revision, and that's kind of the why. So I'll keep going quickly. Under the mission, before, Argyle provides visionary leadership rooted in sound fiscal management, imaginative business development, and exceptional service to its community. Again, great words, but we're trying to do something simpler. We're trying to speak to us and to our community. So what we said was, because the vision talks about our place of choice to invest, live, and play, we basically split the mission out in 3 pieces: invest, live, and play. Mm-hmm. So the first one, invest. Argyle opens its doors for new growth opportunities focused on fishing, tourism, and renewable energy. To me, this is an important change, because what we're actually saying is, we're not saying we're visionary, rooted in this and all that. We're saying we're doing 3 things. We're going to work on on fishing, tourism, and renewable energy. Those are our sectors. Those are our strengths. By the way, those 3 are, well, 2 of the 3 anyway, are matched by the Western Ren. The Western Ren also has strategic priorities. One is fishing, one is renewable energy sector. The tourism is ours. They have forestry. Forestry is more for the north of us, primarily. But we have a unique tourism product, so we should be addressing that specifically, and that's why it's there. Live. Argyle provides affordable taxation while providing safe and healthy communities, and strive to engage and inform our residents on decisions that affects them most. What does that mean? So first of all, affordable taxation. So that's your fiscal management piece. Affordable taxation. So that's our goal. That's one of our missions. We need to make this affordable. We can't just buy, because we know who's paying. The second piece is the safe and healthy communities. That was a piece I felt like was missing. We are providing a tremendous amount of service around safe and healthy communities, but we actually don't say it in our mission. I felt like that was a miss. So we added it based on looking at what we do. It's like, oh, we have to say this is what we're going to do. So when we do work to improve our fire services, it falls under live, right? Because we know that if we increase the protection, if we increase fire protection, if we work on that, we are actually increasing the protection and security of our people. And that's the important piece of that work. So we as staff and as you as council, we need to know why we're doing this, right? That's what we're trying to do here. This is what mission and vision do. They give you the why. Last one is play. Argyle provides for high-class, accessible recreation and cultural facilities and helps celebrate its unique heritage and culture by accepting of new residents in our region. What is that saying? It is saying that we are investing and invested and interested in investing in improved recreation and cultural facilities. Mariner Center expansion is a perfect example of that. Your conversation around active transportation and sidewalks is another example of that. The work that you do inside of this room speaks to that mission when it relates to that. Help celebrate its unique heritage and culture. That's your CMA Vevetkat. That's your Acadian preservation celebration. It's also the preservation and celebration of our non-Francophone community members that live here. And it also includes the accepting of new residents to our region. So this talks about inclusion. It talks about how we are more welcoming of people that are coming into this community. And this is based on the reality that we used to be the same for years and years and years, but we're not necessarily that anymore, that our communities are changing. So that's what Invest, Live, and Play is. That's why we did it this way. I guess I'll keep going, but if there are questions, please, push your button and then I'll see it and I'll stop. The values they're the same values that were discussed at the second facilitated session. That's a session that I was not a part of because due to illness, but we changed the wording around the 4 values. So one is community, the other is innovation, the third is inclusion, and the fourth is service excellence. And each of them has a description. So the descriptions were made smaller. They weren't as wordy. But the 4, community, innovation, service excellence, and inclusion, are the same. So they haven't really changed, only the way we described them. And then finally, this is the last piece, is this work was informed by our staff, though it doesn't mean that it couldn't change from this point. But based on the presentation I just gave you on the values, the mission, everything that we presented to you, we've come up with the 5 goals that we aim to achieve. Now, with a strategic plan, the top is vision, then you have your mission, and you have your values. That basically, this is who we are, this is what we find is important. That has nothing to do with how you get there. It has everything to do with telling everybody, this is what we feel is important. The second bit is the goals. So these are the bits that say, this is what we want to do in order to achieve the things that we feel are important. But inside of these goals, there are no actions. So that's the last piece, which we'll do later. But for now, what we want is the goals define what we do to get to the goals. So this is a process. It's a process, right? There's levels of work that get done. So in the goals, we have 5. We have accelerate and support private economic growth across and inside the municipality. I'm not going to read what the outcomes are, but what that essentially means is we are focused on those 3 things I said: fishing, renewable energy, and tourism. So the goals will fall within those 3 sectors. And the actions, not the goals. I know it's confusing. The actions, the actual work, right? So the actual work has already begun. I've got a bunch of them already done, but I can't put them in place unless I'm comfortable that council is in agreement with the goals, the mission, the vision, and the values. That's why I brought this to you, so that we could say, does this look like something we can work on or not? Okay. So that's goal 1. Goal 2 is improve governance and community representation. What does this mean? That's actually yours. That's your goal. Some of the work you're already doing, which is your changes to your policies around how you treat each other, how you attend meetings, what you do in these meetings, what do you present in these meetings. It's about transparency. It's about community engagement. That piece, I call it the council one, because it's more around the work that you do than it is around the work that we would do, though we would support you in that work. That makes sense. So that's to modernize council meetings. You're already doing this, right? You're doing 2 regular council meetings. That's a modernization. Number 3, keep our business and residents safe. This is where all your safety work goes. Your fire inspection, your fire review, your policing advisory board refresh, anything that we're going to do around safety falls under this goal. Let's keep our residents and businesses safe. Why do we want that? Because that's why people live here. People live here because it's safe, that they can leave their door unlocked and leave their car unlocked. So we want to maintain that way of life. And by doing that, we need the right protection. That's what that is. Number 4, plan to deliver a modernized municipal service. This is about automation. This is about regional services. This is about cost efficiency. It may not be, in some cases, it might be increased costs, but it's also an increase in service. So your planning, your regional planning initiative might cost you more money, but you might get a much better service for that. So this goal is about, can we do it different? Can we do it better, right? What certain services can we do regionally that we're not doing right now? And are there places that we can save money through doing things differently? And I always go back to solid waste, because that's the one place I feel like we can make a difference by diverting more, or by not bringing it to the landfill in the first place. That's how you save money. So that's an example of what kind of initiative would land under number 4. And number 5, provide a welcoming, healthy, and inclusive environment for residents and visitors. That's basically, that's your flag policy, right? That's like, let's be more inclusive here. Let's consider there are other people on this planet that want to live here and that want to learn about what we do. It might be welcoming new residents. It might be doing that. And it's also celebrating the people that have been here. It's about supporting festivals. It's about continuing some of the things that you've already done to support, whether it's the Abuptic Festival or whether it's the Wedgeport Festival. And that's where you would likely have the Congrès Mondial would be likely in that area. So the forward options are, we need to confirm the vision, mission, values. I can assure you that that's been vetted by staff. So the leadership group has said, yes, this is an improvement. This makes sense. Doesn't mean you're locked in stone on all this stuff, because this is a living document. It does change, but it would be nice to get it right, at least somewhat, the first time round. And then the second, we need to approve the refined goals. So I've tried to put the goals as little as possible. Like, we don't want 7 goals. 3 would be great, but we got 5. And then after the approval, or any questions you might have, then we would develop and adjust specific objectives. Like, so where we say, we want to keep people safe, it might say, we're going to do a review of our fire station funding model and bring that recommendation to council. That might be an example by December of 2023. And that might be an example of an action that supports the goal, that supports the mission, that supports the vision. Phew. Lots of information. I told the deputy CAO that it wouldn't take me long to go through this. Boy, was I wrong. And so the next steps are less important. I think you get it. I'm going to stop the presentation there. And if there are any comments, questions, concerns, timing, whatever, I realize this is a lot of information to drop on you. You've had it for a while. If you need more time, let me know. But this is where we're at, and we'd like to continue the work so that we can present to you a final.
Councillor Sonia.
Thank you. So on your vision statement, basically you mentioned how friendly and inviting we are, and you talk about visitors, and that the question is tourism, Yasta, this might be partly for Mr. D'Entremont here, and Ren, are they in the same room when it comes to tourist and tourist businesses? You look at all the avenues we have, and everything that Yarmouth has to offer. I just wonder if these 3 groups, if you can put them that way, are in the same room, the same thought.
They meet separately on their own organizational values and goals and missions. But your question's a good one, because I know that there is communication between the 2 units, mostly around the CEO of both organizations. The specifics of that, I'm sure Councillor D'Entremont could tell you more about that, but I do know that they do intertwine, though they are not 2 units. They are not 1 unit, they are 2.
Councillor D'Entremont.
Well, Mr. Stevenson, who was here tonight, is actually on the YASTA board. So, and representing the REN. So we do, and I know that our CEO, Mackenzie from YASTA, has, I guess, close connections with the regional REN. So, yeah. So there is communication.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy CEO, Surratt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just wanted to add on the presentation from the CAO.
if you guys remember, and I know it's hard to remember, it was almost a year ago, we had that presentation with Jordan, and we had the big 2 days, and everybody was pumped, and all kinds of ideas were flowing, and it was all great, but at the end, when we had to sit down as a leadership team and kind of review all those goals and missions, we had trouble actually attaching ourselves to those pie in the skies ideas that were so high up there that we're looking at each other and saying like, who's going to take charge of this? Like we're a two-man show, and it's about we need 10 to do this show. So who's going to do it? So it made us reflect on going back and try to modernize this or simplify it so that we can actually see, in the presentation. That's why the CAO has the org chart there, so that it kind of helps us to define where some of these goals could be, which department can take on which goals and whatever. So I just wanted to share that's why the CAO has done a lot of work on this with the leadership team supporting him in regards to kind of changing a lot. Like it's really is quite a bit different than what it was a year ago with Jordan, but that's the reason why we had to change it, because those ideas were great, and then it was really good because I was at those presentations, but there were pie in the sky ideas and saying like, who's going to do these big ideas? We're just short staffed, and so now we're kind of simplifying things, and I think we'll be able to set goals that are achievable. I think, and the goals that were there talked about anyhow in Jordan presentation were not so sure they were achievable by the staff, to be honest with you. So I just wanted to make those comments.
Thank you. Councillor Surratt?
This goes to the CAO. It's a good presentation. I read it, and good that you went over it. For myself, this means, to me, no question you need more staff. There's no question. And even with what you've got here, you do need more staff, and I know you're probably you're not looking to spend more money if we don't need to, but at the same time, like the deputy CAO said, there's certain things that you're going to need, and, we're here, I think, as a council to support you if you bring out what you have to tell us. Do you need a fire inspector? You know what? Maybe you do, and we'll hear at the meeting in December, and we need to hear from staff and you what you need, because you've got some good goals in there. Thank you.
CAO Muse.
I don't know that we need more staff or not today. I don't know that. I know that there are gaps. And so it's just like anything else. Like if one of two things needs to happen. If we think the goals are important, then we need to apply ourselves towards them. And if that means that there's certain things that we stop doing now in favor of that, then maybe that's one of the things. There may be occasions where we may need either temporary help or non-temporary. That I can't say. I just want to be sure. I want to make it very clear that the purpose of this is not for that. The purpose of this is for you to understand, this is the direction we think is the best direction for you. And at times when we come to you and ask, then you're informed. Mm-hmm. So if I come to you and say, we need this, and you have no background and you have no, you're like, well, are you sure that's the right decision? Because it could be, maybe you need something maybe you need that instead of this. So the purpose of this is to give that clarity. And so if you're comfortable with this and we come up with an end result, which we will, that will be the document that we use to support you, right? So it's like, okay, well, we're going to go in this direction. Well, we either have what it takes or we don't. And if we don't, then we have to come and we have to tell you, you're right. We have to tell you. But I just want to make sure that this is the map. This is not necessarily we need more staff and this is why we need more. That's not this is like, these objectives are important. They're more important than other objectives. We want to make sure we get them achieved.
I think that when I look at the goals, all of these, I know there are 5, and sometimes it's hard to have 5 goals into, it is a bit, but it's all things we've been talking about. Like, it doesn't feel like there's anything brand new. Do you know what I mean? Like I feel like we've already started on a lot of these. So obviously they're important to us. Obviously, we've already made commitments on some of these, so to me, this makes sense. I think it's important to have a direction, and I think it's important for us, as you said, if you come to us for certain things, it fits our plan, right? It's aligned with our plan. So I'm good with this. I'm not sure how others feel. What is the wish of council? So we could potentially make a motion to pass this?
Yeah, I guess it would be to proceed.
Okay, for the next section.
Because it's not a
Yeah.
completed thing. So it would be a motion to proceed. It's like, this is consistent with what we want.
Right.
Keep going is
Next
what I'm looking
steps.
for. Or this is not, I need more time, or this is not, and this is what needs to change. That's what I'm looking for. I understand that you've had it for a while, but you haven't had it for a ton of time. I understand that. So it's whatever the wish of council, but it really is, if we can get permission to proceed, then we'll start getting into the guts. It doesn't mean you can't go back and change something. And in fact, we do that all the time. We get into stuff and we're like, oh crap, that doesn't work. So then we have to kind of build it again. But we just need, like, we're checking in. This is a check-in, right? That's what we're looking for.
Okay, are there any comments, questions? How does council feel about this? Councillor Bork.
I would like to make the motion that we direct staff to proceed with this. As our CAO had said, it's not set in stone, so if there's something to change and later on, there's always something that's going to change. So I like to make the motion.
Thank you.
And I like the picture of the old East Sider.
Do we have a seconder to that motion? Seconded by Councillor Boudreau. Any questions or comments on that? Councillor Sonia,
So this is just a recommendation to continue.
to continue. Okay, other questions, comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Next, we have correspondence. Number 8, correspondence and for information. So 8A, we have the Monday memo from November 14th from the NSFM. 8B, response from Minister Maslin in regards to the Cat Ferry. So we had sent a letter and we got a response to that letter. C, Heartland Tours Most Active County Award. There's an attachment, a letter there that Yarmouth County wins the Heartland Tours Most Active County Award. I think that's something to celebrate. 8D, 2023 capped assessment rate and key dates reminder. We did have an email regarding this as well. Did you want to speak to that or just?
Unless there are questions.
Are there questions on that? Any comments or questions for the CAO on that? Okay, seeing none, we have another attachment that sorry, did you want to speak on it?
I just wanted to speak on the letter that Minister Maslin sent us.
Yes.
I guess being the chair of YASTA, we sent a letter also, and he said, the last line, or the last paragraph, the government is also exploring options for a broad evaluation of the economic impacts related to the ferry. A request for proposals expected to be issued this fall, and more details will be available at this time. I know for us at YASTA, that's exactly what we want. We want to have a broad evaluation just to see, exactly how important the ferry is to not just this end of Nova Scotia, but the whole province. So we welcome that. So, and since we wrote a nice letter, we got a nice answer back. That was great. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Donaldson.
Yeah, I'm going to jump to the next one, the cap assessment. Is confirmed at a 7.7% raise on assessment. That translates into what on a $200,000 house for taxes?
That's an excellent question. I'm pulling the calculator.
You're an,
Wow.
Yeah, you're an accountant, so we know you can get this one.
Yeah. Well, the pressure's on because what if I get it wrong, right? Did you say 200,000?
Yeah, we'll use 100, 200, whatever's comfortable.
So if I do a 7.7 increase on that assessment, that increases the assessment by $15,400. If it's residential, on $1.11, that's not right. Just a second. So if I take the 15,000, which is the difference, times 1.11, it's $165. That does not include any area rate for fire. So if there are fire rates, that would also increase by 7.7%. So over the course of a year, that would be about $14 a month on that particular example.
You
What's-
used the 200, did you?
Yeah.
I did. So two things you should be aware of. Number one, not everybody will see that increase, and some may see more. Okay, so for those that have no cap on assessment, so if you're a non-resident, your increase will be the difference between what market value was the year before and what market value was this year.
Wow, someone's gonna get hit hard.
So some could get hit quite hard. So the 7.7 is your inflation percentage. That doesn't speak to how high the market value went up from year to year. It speaks to how high the cap will go up from year to year. So if you are a resident and you are on the cap on assessment, and you're below, so your market is 200 and you're at 170. If your market doesn't change, your cap will. If your market changes, your cap will, but it will be restricted at that 7.7. So this is going to be by far the highest percentage that we've seen. The last time we saw these percentages, they wanted to cap because they saw that in certain very highly lucrative areas that they were going 10, 12% each year, and that was just too much. So that's what's happening. But that's one of the two numbers that you have when you make your calculation for taxes. The other one's the rate. So we're on December 1st, we'll get the assessment as quickly as we can get it loaded. We will. We'll take a look at the differences between one year and the next and try to understand what that means for us. The sooner we can get that information, the sooner we can start talking about the impact on municipalities. That being said, municipalities are also showing that increase in inflation. So it isn't just that we're holding our line and everything else is going up. That's not exactly the case. It's going like this. So there are certain expenses that will go up, and we'll have in the near future bring you information to try to limit that to the best way possible. HRM has gone on record to say that they're expecting a pretty significant tax increase next year because there's more than one reason. That's one of them. The other one was a drop in transfer taxes that might put more pressure on residential taxes to pay for the services that are being provided. That's a long answer to the question. My advice to you is be ready. Be ready for what that means and what your residents, how your residents may respond. And it's not going to be a positive response. But it's outside of your control right now. What's in your control is the rate and certain aspects of what you do in terms of delivery of service. Those are things that are in your control right now. So I hope that made it way more complicated than it needed to be, because that was my intention.
One more question, and it's not on here. When will you know how much new assessment we have? Like, because that's, I mean, we're growing, like most rural municipalities aren't doing that well, but we do have, you know, a fair bit of building going on, and so.
I think I should have that information for you by January, because the assessment gets rolled, the roll comes to us in December. And by the time you look at it, analyze it, and assess it, Christmas is come and gone, and it's January.
Okay.
So I suspect in the month of January, we'll get as much information to you as possible, including that.
I just feel, I mean, it's an opinion, but I feel like the lower income people are really suffering now, and to slam this on top of people, like, yeah, I don't know how we're gonna deal with it, but we'll have to crunch the numbers when spring comes.
Not to say that this is going to be a solution, but you do have a low-income exemption policy today. So one of the ways that you might be able to deal with this unprecedented increase is to actually address it within, like, target the people you want to target, right? So you have that ability today. So I'm not going to presume what that looks like today because we don't know. But part of what we will bring you in the coming months will include, okay, your low income policy, if you're targeting low income to not feel the burden of this, well, then we can do that. And there's ways to do that. And right now it's an application-based process. There may be other ways to do that, but to me, that's part of your goal of making sure that the services are affordable. Like, that fits in your strategy, right? So it's a perfect example of how that fits in a goal that you have in there.
Any other questions on any of those correspondence pieces? Okay, Warden Muse, you have another piece of
Yes,
correspondence?
it's a thank you note that we received from the Chamber of Commerce, Carrie Muse, that she wants to thank us for the unanimous support of ongoing funding for our physician recruitment efforts. It was a pleasure spending time with your council, sharing our work, and hearing your feedback, questions, and suggestions. Your increase in funding sets the bar for other funding partners. And they've already seen that because they've had some that have increased already their funding, like private enterprise that did that as well. So wants to thank us for the quick decision that we made after her presentation. Like, she didn't really expect it to happen that quick, and she was just, but it was addressed to me, and council. So I want to make sure that council knew how appreciative they were of what we've done, and feels that it's going to have a snowball effect, that they might get more from everybody else now.
Thank you. Number 9, financial requests. We don't have any that I can see. Number 10, agenda topics for next meeting are notice of motion by councillors. Councillor Bork.
Yes, I have a topic for a future meeting. It would be the volunteer banquet. We need to discuss how we're going to do it. Are we going to go virtual? Are we going to meet as we usually had a banquet? Or probably like to know the pros and cons of both sides. So I'd like to have a meeting in the new year about that.
Thank you. Anybody else? CAO Muse?
Question of clarity on the notice of motion. Thank you for that. That's great, because then we can prepare. Would you like the ARC to attack this first to bring to the council, or do you think it's more of the work that council wants to see staff kind of like, we can get staff to prepare some options and stuff? Would you like the Argyle Recreation Commission involved?
I believe it should be the recreation department.
Okay.
They're the one that usually takes care of it.
Right, but they have the advisory committee, and so what I'm hearing you say is they should be included as well. Excellent. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure.
Councillor Digdon?
Thank you. I should have brought this up with business arising from the minutes, but it was just something that I thought we done at the last meeting that I felt quite good about. And just wondering if we have an amount of how much was given to the food bank that was held.
CAO Muse?
We do. Oh, would you like the number? So we do. Some of that is my other hat. So I think the Tusket and Wedgeport store had two things going. They had the food donation piece, and they had the financial donation piece. The food, we managed two full cruisers, full inside and out in Tusket, and one smaller cruiser full from Wedgeport. Tusket got more of the advertising, so they got a lot of food from that initiative. They got, I can confirm, $12,000 from corporate sponsorship, and about 600 to 700, not confirmed, from cash donations. So keep in mind, those are the same people that donated food and many preferred to give the food than the money because they wanted to make sure it was going to the right place. So a total 12 plus 6 plus food is probably what I would say.
Wow.
That's great. And the only thing I'd like to do is thank Carol Store for the initiative and thank all the people that gave, because it is going to be a different year, different winter than that for a lot of people, I believe. Thank you.
On the food part, we delivered it. We were there and we sorted out and we filled the shelves in the food bank. Plus, and that was just the canned goods that we saw there, and the dry goods like cereals and whatever you can't store there. And there were bins and bins and bins of that are in another room. So the food bank is in good shape right now. How long that'll last, I don't know, but it's expected that there's going to be demands for food and for oil as well. So I think they're in good shape for this winter.
Good. Councillor Donovan.
Going back to Councillor Book's agenda topic for next meeting, just something I had thought about. So we had our volunteers for the last 2 years, no banquet. If we did go back to a banquet, would there be a possibility of maybe bringing those people to the banquet so they could actually get honored, properly? Going with a bag and the certificates and a gift to their house or wherever, I guess, to give them felt okay and good, but I don't think it's the proper recognition for volunteers. So I don't know if that's a possibility or.
I know we had a conversation, and the reason it came up, we had a conversation about this at ARC as to what it's going to look like next year. And that's why we kind of talked about the pros and cons, what, financially, all the other things like the feedback. And ultimately, it's a council decision. But one of the things, so would we bring those people to the banquet? So those recipients got $100 or $75 gift card, $100 gift card with their prize bag, I guess is the only way to say it. Whereas, so that was like the replacement for the meal. So if you bring them to the banquet, it's almost like you're double dipping financially. If we wanted to do that, we could, because ultimately it's our decision. But that is one of the things that we had talked about. I know that also Jeanette and Nat talked about how there are some people who preferred being virtual. They wouldn't necessarily have accepted that award and have to go to the banquet and be in front of the crowd like as we do it. So that's why we want to know from ARC, and we want to bring that information forward. What are all the pros and cons and what's the best way to tackle it?
Yeah, well, I guess when we talk about volunteers in a municipality, really a dollar amount is, you can't even put a dollar amount on the volunteer work that we have. And I was just thinking of the 2 volunteers that I honored, or 4 volunteers, sorry, that I honored in a couple of years. And, the work that they've done in our community is outstanding. And, even if we had to give our new ones a $75 gift card to even the playing field, or whatever way you want to say it, I would definitely, be in favor of that. And for those that don't want to show up to the banquet, that's up to them. But, if the ones that we honored want to go to the banquet, I think we should give them a chance, because they missed out, really, because the banquet is a wonderful way of honoring our volunteers. That's just my thought.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Okay, so next we have question period. There's nothing at question period. So we are going, for number 12, we're going to go in camera for contract negotiations. We have 2 different items in that meeting. So can we have a motion to go in camera? Seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Thank you.